Hello, ladies, gentlemen, non-binaries, and everybody else under the rainbow of our wonderful community. How are you doing? Today, we are back with another day of Sexy Spicy September, where I make new content on a different Otome game every day in September. Today, we are checking out Impolite Society, which is a historical Otome visual novel set in Regency, London. So this is a demo, which is about 10,000 words and kind of like a prologue, which was created for Otome Jam, which is what a lot of the games I'm looking at is from. And they're working on a full version of the game for Sunofest for this year. So Sunofest has to be November. Like, I don't know, I just get the feeling from the no, and that's the only, like, you know, month that has no in it, November. But the plot. After a failed engagement and the untimely death of your father, you have been content to while away your days from the safety of Dorset Park. Your sister's first season and the arrival of a letter from your brother, however, all but shatter the status quo you've been so desperately striving to preserve. Once again cast into Polite Society, you must juggle your sister's introduction to the Ton, as well as several social events you can't ignore. Furthermore, your managing nature keeps getting you tangled up in the lives of a few eligible, and not so eligible, young men. Can you survive the season, or will you get caught up in the dangerous webs being woven around you? I only knew some of those words because I watched Bridgerton. I don't know if this has any connection to Bridgerton. I don't know anything. This usually isn't my field, but I do watch Bridgerton, so there's that. Once again, guys, all the information for this game is going to be found in the description box below, as well as my own social media, so check that out if you enjoy this game. And speaking of, let's jump into it. Hello, game. The music. Oof. Yeah, give me Bridgerton vibes. Come at me. I know, I'm not saying it has to be like Bridgerton. I'm just saying that's the only thing that's the only thing I can connect it to. I love all the freckles. Okay, we got like similar eyes. His eyes are really pretty. Is this us? Is this a friend? I don't know, Reaper. Maybe if you played the goddamn game. So let's go into settings really quick, just show you. I'm in window, disabled, I'm not skipping. Let's move the text speed up because that tends to be really slow for me. I've got all the music up because I did stuff on the back end. So let's go. I wonder, I would speak in a posh accent, but I don't want to offend anyone. So this is the prologue. I look up from my copy of the Ladies' Monthly Museum at my Aunt Emmeline, who is indulging in an unusually inflamed monologue on the dangers of precociously launching girls into polite society. Ha ha ha! So we've almost said the title of the game in the first sentence. Ha ha ha! I see you. I see you. Okay, so that is us. We're Isabelle, is what I'm assuming? Now, Aunt Emmeline, I don't think poor Mathilda Bagshot should be flogged simply for making eyes at young Buckworth. Not when there are so many better reasons for doing so. Eleanor hasn't even bothered to look up from the book she's reading, her little mordant comment being delivered in pseudo voice for my ears alone. Okay, there's gonna be a lot of words, and I'm not saying anybody has to dumb down a game or vocabulary for people to play. I'm just saying many people play the game and don't read the lines out loud, and I'm making myself look like an idiot by doing that for the internet. So just keep your expectations in check, and remember, I can't word well. Mrs. Matcham said she showed such a want of conduct that would have sent her mamma into a decline, were she there to see it. If every time Mathilda does something silly, her mother's reaction is to go into a decline, it's no wonder she's an ill-bred piece of work. I let out a peal of laughter as I primly set down my magazine. So you agree with Aunt Emmeline that she should be flogged? It wouldn't fix her horrible personality, but it would afford me no end of joy. Oh, Eleanor, don't let anyone hear you talk that way. Oh, I skipped that, my bad. There we go, okay. They might think you really mean it. The smile on Eleanor's face as she burrows back into her blanket tells me she very much does mean it. Surely that's not at all the way a delicately nurtured girl should behave. Do you mean Mathilda or Eleanor? Either of them! I can't speak for Eleanor, but I'm sure the account of Mathilda's wrongdoings has been wildly exaggerated. I feel compelled to remind you that we've decided, several times in fact, to pay no heed to malicious gorgons like Mrs. Matcham. It's not just her. Oh, Mrs. Grant said quite the same, and I know how much you value her opinion. In matters of fashion, perhaps, but not in passing judgment over simpering Mrs. hardly out of the schoolroom. Why, Mathilda is all of 17, and it was her first party. She was likely overwhelmed. And you can't but agree that the young Mr. Buckworth is a very agreeable young man. He is very handsome. Dangerously so. Does that make her a brass-faced hussy? I throw an admonishing glance at Eleanor. Her lips are dangerously pressed together, undoubtedly repressing any number of unflattering comments about Mathilda Bagshot's character. And Emmeline, on the other hand, has changed her tune. Silly, perhaps, but certainly not fast. Quite so, my dear. Moreover, it's far better for her to make a goose of herself here, where we're all friends and we've known her since she was a child, than when she's thrown into the ton. I should think it far worse to act silly in front of persons you've known your whole life than in front of complete strangers who likely don't give a button for you. I hope that's not the attitude you're assuming for your first season. Eleanor immediately bristles, and I can't quite fault her. For all her qualities, Aunt Emmeline isn't possessed of a lively sense of humor. She's far more likely to stare and ask what you mean than to share in any joke or fun, whether good or ill-natured. Eleanor, whose sense of ridicule has been well honed over the years, can't abide her. I often suspect Aunt Emmeline of returning the sentiment, though she well tries to pretend otherwise. I'm certain Eleanor will behave just as she ought. Freddie tells me you were the most shocking flirt when you first came out. Freddie needs to learn how to mind her tongue, especially since the story she's referring to doesn't paint her in the best light either. Why, I remember quite vividly. The memory is vivid indeed, so vivid in fact that it promptly wipes the smile off my face. Memories of a dark countenance brush through my mind's eye, and I swat them away. What miserably flies. Why, my dear, but with your dear mamma gone, allowances had to be made. Even the unkindest of matrons wouldn't have been so heartless as to condemn your behavior. I should like to think I was never fast, whatever allowances I was given. I should like to think so too, for I've never seen you behave with the least impropriety, and with your poor papa gone. I spy out of the corner of my eye Parker sliding into the room, a letter on a silver salver? Okay, the only word I know is platter. That is not, that word's not platter, it's solver. Just checking. I motion to him to come closer. Thank you, Parker. I turn the letter and cry with joy at the familiar seal I immediately recognize as belonging to my younger brother. It's from James. Eleanor, who had been feigning disinterest, suddenly comes alive, getting up to her feet and joining me on the sofa. Aunt Emmeline lets out an equally delighted squeal. Oh, what a treat! I can't remember the last time he wrote. That's because James thinks writing letters is a torment put on this earth to cause him pain. You're funnying, surely. He calls them dry pieces of still life. Says there's nothing as dull as sending a letter. I get up and reach for a letter opener on the desk before I finally open it under Aunt Emmeline's and Eleanor's anxious scrutiny. What does it say? Is everything all right? He isn't hurt, is he? God, those horrible guns! I'll wager he has gotten himself shot! Oh, poor boy! No, quite the contrary. He writes to say that he's coming home soon. Oh, my dear, that is excellent news! Is he selling out? It would seem so, yes. When should we expect him? I stop in my tracks, my mouth suddenly dry as dust. He's married. Married? To whom? He doesn't say. My eyes scour the missive for any other details, anything that might explain this unlikely turn of events. Somehow, there are none. Not his bride's name. Nothing about her. He does, however, think it is important to beg me to get from Charles Lansley the year and name of the port they once had at Lady March's home. And that he'll know which one he means. I suddenly find myself wishing he would get shot. Eleanor! I shake my head with shared indignation and turn the letter only to find there isn't more of it. Oh, of all the provoking things. Trust my brother to send life-changing news and not bother with any specifics. Aunt Emmeline falls on a nearby chair, her countenance flustered with the excitement of the news. Married! I nod. It is so very like him to just spring this on us with a nary a thought as to how it will affect us. And affect us it must. My eyes follow on my younger sister, who does not yet seem to understand just how much. Still, married! Oh, how wonderful! I can't conceive how he persuaded anyone to take him. I take a breath and shake myself back up, forcing a smile onto my face at Eleanor's sally. Quite. And to think he never looked twice at all the girls who set their caps at him. I'm quite eager to meet her. I would laugh if it was a dude. Like, low-key, can little brother come, or can brother come home and just be like, I'm home, and I am gay. I know it's not gonna happen, but you know, I can dream. You've never said when they're coming back home. He says May. That leaves us with 6 months. It leaves me with 6 months to make plans. It's less than I'd hoped for, but one must make allowances for selfish, self-absorbed siblings. It's true. Days later, I receive a visit from Lady Frederica Carlisle. Aw, cute! I really like the hairstyles. I like the hairstyles and I really like the art of the characters, not gonna lie. Dear James, married! While I still haven't forgiven my brother for springing the news on us the way he did, I'm slowly warming up to the idea. Dear James is a chucklehead. His getting married is a notion so sensible he surely can't have stumbled upon it on his own. Is! Oh, fustian. It's all good and well for me to take care of his affairs while he's fighting a war, but what do you suppose will happen when he returns? From the way you're talking, I would think he's going to cast you out. Of course not. His wife will, or worse still, she might send Eleanor to one of those horrid asylums? It's asylums, right? It's asylums! I'm going insane. I'm questioning every word I actually do know. Moving on. I'm not gonna stop. Nope. Moving on. My darling, you're quite paranoid. Am I? Eleanor's case isn't quite so dire as that, is it? Where is she? I wave a hand in the general direction of my sister's bedroom. I got home to find her still abed because no one dared try to rouse her. After 3 years, Aunt Emmeline still doesn't know how to manage her. I can't fault your aunt for not willingly subjecting herself to one of Eleanor's more virulent tongue lashings. Just because she suffers from ill humors, that does not make your sister a saint. No, it does not, and that's what frightens me. Eleanor's not an easy person, and if James's bride turns out to be one of those odious managing females... What a thing to say when you are an odious managing female yourself! Precisely what I'm saying. I honestly don't know how you contrive to put up with me, for I would not. With a great deal of personal sacrifice. I smile at her small comment and resume my little soliloquy. I would happily stay, were she some waif of a green girl that I might ride roughshod over. James, however, is bound to have been picked up by someone with an iron will. She must have hunted him down until he could no longer say no. Izzy! I snored at her indignation. I'm not wrong, and you know it. What if she's a nice girl? What if she likes Eleanor? Then I'll have been wrong, and I'll be very glad for it. But in case she is not, I don't want to be caught unaware. Are you getting married then? Her tone is hopeful, but she knows me better than that. Good God, no. I'm setting up my own establishment. You can't mean that. You're far too young. I absolutely will, and no, don't protest. My mind is made up, my dear. I'm going to find a nice townhouse for me and Eleanor to move into before the season ends. She still looks horrified. People will talk. According to Aunt Em, the fact that I'm motherless excuses even the darkest of sins. I refuse to dwindle into a sad aunt. My tone is frivolous, but from the look on Freddie's face, she knows I'm not taking this lightly. She holds out a hand to me and gives mine a squeeze. Before you go through all this trouble to avoid it, has it ever occurred to you that you might enjoy being married? That seems dubious, especially since I've already found that I quite enjoy being a spinster. You're 4 and 20 is. You're hardly a spinster. 4 and 20. I'm 24. Haha! Math! Right? Right? 24. Because back in these days, if you weren't married by like 17, you were considered a spinster. If it was 4 and 20, yeah, 4 and 20, yeah, it has to be 24. Because if it was like 42, nah, I look way too young for 42. I look good for 42 if I am 42, but 24. I'm not gonna bet money, but I'm pretty sure. I'm like 50-50. This game is just bringing out everything I don't know. I feel attacked. I feel intellectually attacked. All I'm saying. Plenty of older women with far fewer prospects and less countenance have been happily wed. Just because you're scared. I immediately bristle, removing my hand from hers with indignation. I beg your pardon. Scared? Of marriage? Phew. Yes, of marriage. My dearest, I seem to remember a time not so long ago when you weren't so horribly jaded. Before I cut my wisdom teeth and realized I was better on my own? Before Jasper Monroe? My heart sinks to my feet at the name. I haven't allowed myself to think it, much less say it out loud in years, for fear of what it might do to me. In fact, I'd hoped in a few years I might have forgotten about him entirely. That's quite enough, Freddie. Someone must say it. If not me, I can't fathom who else. You've been hiding behind Eleanor's problems and your mourning clothes for almost 2 years. You've shut yourself off from the world. Unless you put a stop to this right now, I will be extremely cross with you. And I'm willing to suffer your cattishness because I love you like a sister and you need to hear it. Not every man out there is a Jasper Monroe. I stood up, anger flooding me. If I didn't know better, I'd have suspected you of being heartbroken all these years. Some people do, you know. Are you just going to let them think that forever? Oh, they do they? They think I'm such a poor creature that I might be wearing the willow for a man who cried off on our engagement without even warning me? My voice is a hiss now, and I look at the door to make sure it's closed. Freddie matches my tone, her wary eyes following mine. Well, you've given them no reason to think otherwise in the last 5 years. You haven't so much as looked at another man since. They call you the fortress, you know. Unimpregnable. I'm aware of the moniker, and it has afforded me a great deal of private amusement. Now, however, it makes my stomach sink. How ill-bred. Just so. And you think I'd get married to just any man to quell those odious rumors? I think it would do you harm to set up an innocent flirtation every once in a while. I think it wouldn't do you harm to set up an innocent flirtation every once in a while. I flirt? Yes, but you've never been particular in your attentions or showed any preference for one man over another. That's because I have no preference. And if I were to show preference, it would give them the wrong impression. And then I'd have a whole array of silly young greenhorns trying to fix their interest with me, and that I cannot abide. I'm sure out of all the men in London, there must be at least one you don't find utterly detestable. Why though me and Isabelle are just like shaking hands. I'm with her. Like, I get it. Flirt. I'll flirt now, but nah. No, that's a lot of effort. That's a lot of effort for someone that's probably gonna annoy me in like 2 months now. It's something amazing when you become really happy with yourself and happy with your aloneness. Maybe that's just coming from the introvert part of me. But, Isabelle, I get it. Although, I'm gonna say, I really hope we find you someone cute, sweetie. I'm gonna find you a good one, I promise. Isabelle, trust me. We gonna find us a good one, I promise. Of course there is. But would I enjoy them mauling me and trying to make passionate love to me? I don't think so, Freddie. If it's the right man, you will enjoy it, I promise. And if it's not, I suppose I'm supposed to just endure it? Plenty of women do. Plenty of women who have no other option than to peddle themselves to the highest bidder. I have a choice. Even if it's the wrong one. It just pains me to see you alone, when I know you're so loving and kind and... Loving and kind? Yes, you pea-goose, much as you pretend otherwise. It's been so long since I've seen you enjoy yourself. It's like you've built a wall around you. Don't you mean a fortress? Freddie lets out a giggle. Quite. What of Eleanor? What of her? Will she be allowed to choose? Or will you force her into this life of spinsterhood you're so busy sorting out for the two of you? I take a deep breath. I don't know. I don't doubt the season will do her good. It'll keep her busy and entertained at the very least. As for any suitors she might have, I'm not sure whether I should beat them off with a stick or encourage them. She could be happy, she could have children of her own, a life of her own if you just let her. So could you, for that matter. I'll just be glad if she finds someone who she might want to get out of bed for. If everything goes right, she might find someone she wants to get into bed with. I cover my smile with my hand, feeling myself blush to the roots of my hair. Freddie! So might you if you stopped being such a prissy little miss. I can feel my ears burning, blood rushing to my cheeks. Oh, shut up. I speak nothing but the inconvenient truth, my darling. Mark my words, Eleanor may yet find a man she adores. And when that happens, you'll be left bitter and alone. I don't see much of an alternative. You could find a decent man who worships the ground you tread on, and trust that he won't lock up your beloved sister in a lunatic asylum. I feel like that's too big of an ask, perhaps. Finding a duke to marry might prove an easier task. Very well. I hope you find a perfectly agreeable man with whom you'll conduct yet another inconspicuous flirtation that will lead to absolutely nothing. At least then you'll be happy and safe with the knowledge that nothing has changed and nothing will change. Better? Infinitely. Is that really too much to ask? Life has a way of happening, whether you'd like it to or not. It's generally easier to live it than to let it run roughshod over you. Let it run roughshod over you. I'm either getting the vocabulary or I'm getting the voices. There will not be both in this playthrough. It's just not happening. The door opens. Quietly, almost cattily, Parker walks in. Okay, Parker Butler. Is he an option? He was on the front page. Is he an option? Probably not. Probably doesn't look good, you know, for someone to, like, flirt with the butler of your family. Mr. Harry Lansley, milady. I take the visiting card from the salver and give Parker an inquisitive look. As usual, I get very little from his face. He seems particularly eager to see you, ma'am. Did he give a reason for his visit, or... After a small pause of clear hesitation, Parker clears his throat. He spoke briefly to Miss Emmeline, and she left for the gardens in the greatest hurry. I spy an unusual flash of sympathy in Parker's usually apathetic countenance, and my heart sinks. Oh, Lord. I press a hand against my forehead and let out a long sigh. Should I tell him you're indisposed? I give him a thankful look and shake my head. Thank you, Parker, but that won't be necessary. Send him in. Might as well get it over and done with. By the time Harry walks into the room, my frustration has turned into amusement at the absurd situation. Mr. Harry Lansley. The second he walks in, however, it strikes me how much older he looks. It's Freckle Boy! I love the freckles. You can't tell because I wear a lot of makeup, but I also have lots of freckles, and it's like my favorite part of me. I love it. Tired, Tired, like he has the weight of the world on his shoulders. Harry, darling, won't you take a seat? Parker nods imperceptibly, closing the door behind him. Lady Ashburn. The second the door closes, Harry has descended upon me, pulling me to his chest and twirling me around, all but knocking the breath out of me. Why? Why are we Don't touch me! I don't know who you are, but don't touch me! What the hell? As someone who was like very much for consent, nah, fuck this. Okay, wait, I'm laughing. This is a usual thing? I don't know, I'm very confused. I don't know, but still, even if we're old friends, please still ask for my consent. Don't touch me, please. My skirts flutter and I let out a laugh, smacking him away the second he sets me down. You preposterous preposterous! I can say preposterous! You preposterous creature, let go of me this instant! He does just so, an impish look on his face that clears the clouds in his countenance for just a second. Seeing him makes me realize just how much I missed him. In a sense, he's an extension of James. So is he's brother's friend? He's brother's friend, right? He's always been a reminder of better times back when Papa was alive, of cold evenings playing charades with Eleanor, Charlie, and Freddie. A simpler time. Standing here now, however, There's a looming discomfort on my behalf. There are very few reasons why a man should be allowed to pay his addresses to a woman in private. Fewer still that send said woman's chaperone running in the opposite direction. Long time, my dear. You are looking put together? At his snigger, I catch my reflection in a nearby mirror and adjust my hair, which has come sadly undone under his ministrations. And just whose fault is that, I wonder? Freddie was here today. You just missed her. Why the visit? I hear you've shed your blacks. About time, too. It's been what, 3 years? 2. It's quite to be expected when one loves someone as much as I love dear Papa. I'm really trying to stop myself from saying, Papa! This is so much fun to read, though. Like, legit. I love this. He shakes his head with amusement. Doing it much too brown, darling. Your dear Papa hated women in mourning. I also seem to recall quite a few choice comments about his feeling a murder of crows had descended upon him. I stare back at him in mutinous silence. You've been using your dear Papa as an excuse to hide in this godforsaken place for 1.5 years at the least. I see you've been talking to Freddie. Indeed. I've heard about James. Congratulations and whatnot. I offer him a small nod and am incapable of not smiling back. I've also heard about your harebrained scheme to set up on your own. Now, as Charlie is so fond of saying, if you had a particle of common sense. I gave him a look of disbelief. You're not here to lecture me. Clearly not. He looks appropriately amused at the notion. Of course not. You're confusing me with my estimable brother. I myself think it's a capital scheme. I look warily back at him. It seems like I might have been mistaken for the reason of his visit. What's worse, he's endorsing my plans, which gives me pause. Anything Harry considers a capital scheme is bound to go topsy-turvy. Did Charlie send you? I resent the implication that I'd ever do something as pedestrian as being an emissary for Charles. I don't know where I'm setting Harry's voice, by the way. I'm so sorry. I've tried like 3 different things and nothing has clicked for him yet. I think it's a bang-up idea. It just needs some shaping. Maybe there? I've come up with a far more eligible solution for your problem. One which will not make you the talk of every ill-spirited gabster. And there it is! I cover my eyes with my hand and let out a long, suffering sigh. It's quite simple, really. All you need to do is marry me. Coming on a little strong there, Harry. Just a little strong, Mrs. O'Wady. Okay, if you're such a close part of my family, and I trusted you enough, wouldn't we have been married already? There's something, what has stopped us from getting married? Like, why were you not like a first choice if we were that close? Like, the fact that you could just come in here and pick me up and like, the fact that you just touch me kind of throws me off, okay? I'm torn between laughing and throwing something at his head. Marry you? Obviously not. No, but listen to me for a heartbeat. That way, no one would give you grief for moving out and you'll get to do just as you planned. Except, you know, sensibly. Harry, just to be clear, are you proposing to marry me? The smile tugs at the corners of his mouth, and for the smallest second, I'm terrified that he might decide to physically further his suit. Instead, he leans carelessly against the arm of my sofa, far as far can be. Yes. Just to be clear, you want me. To marry you. The look on Harry's face up until now had been neighboring charming confidence. At my words, he reverts... Oh, at my words, maybe? At my words, he reverts to being a sulky boy, one whom I've done grievous harm. Dashed unpleasant is. You make me sound like the vilest man alive. That's because you are the vilest man alive. Oh, darling, how... Honestly, Harry! You're a fortune hunter, and not a very talented one at that. I haven't clapped eyes on you for months, and you think you can show up the second I'm out of the black gloves? Make an offer, and then I'll curtsy, say thank you, and let you squander my inheritance? Harry sighs and gives me a phlegmatic look. Okay, well, yes, I'd hoped. I really had it all thought out. Freddie gave me her blessing as well. She did she? I make a mental note to have a little chat with precious and meddlesome Freddie. Your dearest twin aside, of all the absurd notions, you can't have supposed this was a good idea. I did, actually. He looks so torn up that, for a brief second, I wonder whether I should marry him. No, I'm gonna call no. I'm gonna help us, no. Fortunately, he opens his mouth and all those generous feelings fly right out the window. What am I supposed to do now, then? Deuced awkward this? Deuced? Whatever. Deuced awkward this. Coming all the way from Shropshire? These are probably actual places in the UK, and I am butchering them, and I am so sorry. Just fuck me. Fuck me. Only to get rejected. What are you asking me for? You're the one who thought this was a capital scheme. I hold you particularly accountable for this particular fiasco. Partially. I hold you partially accountable for this particular fiasco. Have a heart, will you? Oh, go to the devil. Language, Lady Ashburn. Humbug. You've a nice enough demeanor, and your address is generally not terrible. Except in this particular case in which I feel like you've made a proper muck of it. You'll find someone else. I pat his arm comfortingly, and, to his credit, he immediately bounces back to his usual lightness. He often reminded me of a puppy, happy to rally at the smallest goodwill. Do you suppose heiresses of eligible age will, with acceptable faces, just grow on trees? No, my dear. But if you want to get yourself rid of whatever debts you've been raking up, that would be your best bet. That or telling Charlie the truth, which I suppose you don't want to do. No, thank you. I'm not ever reduced to such straits. I lost the voice I had for Isabelle, too. Dang it, Reeps. How scorched are you? I perceive a small hesitation in him, one that tells me his affairs might not be as breezy as he is making them sound. I've seen him deep before, but he's never looked this concerned. For goodness sake, I'm not going to let you frank me. You'd let me pay your debts if we were wed, but I can't lend you the money? What kind of twisted logic is that? The one where I'm not borrowing money from you, in this world or the next. Are you quite certain you don't want to marry me? When you're there's certain things that I have to enunciate and whatnot. It gives the tone to the sentence. God, this is a hard day for me, apparently. When you're such a catch. He lets out a laugh at the set down and gets back up to his feet. He's always been incapable of standing still for more than one moment, which I suppose accounts for all those terrible decisions he makes. All the more pity. We'd suit, you know. At least with me, you wouldn't have to pretend you're not far too opinionated for your own good.
And I'd leave you all to your lonesome. What's more, I'd never. He seems to rethink whatever he's saying. We'd have fun, too. I'd lord over you like a tyrant, and you know it. I'd be glad of it, frankly. I'm going at it on my own, and I've been botching it prodigiously. There's a half smile on his face, and my heart tightens as I notice a wrinkle I've never seen before. I'd rather eat Aunt Emmeline's poultice. Is she around? Somewhere. I think she went for a walk when you turned up. Deuced kind of her. I don't know if I'm saying that word right. I know. She probably thought this would go another way entirely. To tell you the truth, so did I. I can't fathom why. She has wedding brains since James's letter, so it's excusable. But you... What confounded nonsense! Where are you staying? The Red Lion. Horrid place, but the food isn't too shabby. I could put you up for a couple of weeks if you'd like. Plenty of room to spare. Don't talk nonsense, dearest. You're still unmarried. Do you really want that sort of rumor running around? Aunt Emmeline is around. So is Eleanor if you're keen. She's not me, but she is pretty well-to-do. If you think I'm going to go after a chit barely out of the schoolroom, your opinion of me is really low. Not to mention she'd eat him alive and spit out the bones, but those are mere details. Well, you did just ask me to marry you to pay off your gambling debts. My opinion of you is about as low as it can get. I hold out my hand to him and squeeze his affectionately. Now. I promise you'll be all right. He looks up at me and offers me a queer little smile. You promise, do you? I nod, and he looks away, shaking his head. You can handle it, whatever it is. He lets go of my hand and gets up with renewed energy. Were it Charlie, would your answers be any different? Obviously. Charles isn't a coxcomb, and he wouldn't just barge into the place spouting rubbish almost the second I got out of black gloves. If he initially looked indignant, his sense of ridicule soon gets the better of him. I love the facial expressions. That, and he's rolling in it already. Man doesn't need to marry a rich heiress. That's nonsense. Even if he weren't rich as crocious, like you say, he has a brain. And, unlike you, he occasionally elects to use it. Not recently, he hasn't. Both our mouths pinch at the thought. A moment of shared distaste at the thought of Carolyn March. Has he set a date yet? Still nothing. Might as well put up a notice on the Gazette saying he doesn't want to marry her. I sigh and he shakes his head. I'd ask you to fix it for him, but I'm certain they deserve each other. I have been considering doing just that. Unfortunately, the only way I see for him to, extricate himself from it is for her to cry off. Which she won't. Not in a million years. Serves him right. There's an unusual bite to his tone. Have you fallen out of sorts with him? When have I ever not been out of sorts with Charlie? Now, don't take a pet. Not everything is his fault, you know. This in particular is entirely on you. I know it's not. Not his fault that he was born first, nor that he is undoubtedly better than me, but it's still grating. I sigh. Charlie's not better than you. He just makes fundamentally better decisions than you. He's not better. He just makes better decisions. Oh my god, okay. So there's older brother. I love the power and the family dynamics of this time. Isn't that the same thing? and long term, perhaps. If you thought a little about doing whatever scattered-brain nonsense pops into your mind, you wouldn't be here getting scolded by you. Nor would you be swimming in a pit of vile debt. We stare at each other companionably when the doors open and in walks Parker with a tray of refreshments. My butler, who is usually a very discreet sort of person, suddenly feels very present. His eyes fall on mine and I realize he's intervening. I give him a surreptitious nod and he departs, silent as he came. I'm not falling. No, I'm not falling for the butler. We're not doing this. No, we're not doing. No, Reaper. He's probably not even an option. We're not doing this, Reaper. No, like friendship, like looking out for the master kind of stuff. No, Reaper. No, because if you can't choose him, then you're just gonna have your personal heart broken, and there's no point in that. No, walk away until you definitely know who you can romance. Step away. Don't. I'm looking at you, Reaper, in the future. Don't do it. A few minutes later, over a glass of brandy and a honey cake, Harry looks almost consoled. You know, I wasn't too keen on it when I came over, but now I really think I wouldn't mind marrying you. With flattering offers such as these, it's really a wonder I haven't said yes. Do you want me to foot the bill for the Red Lion? You can pay me back when your pockets are up to snuff again. No, I don't want you to foot the bill for my inn. If you're concerned about what people might think if they found out, I assure you they wouldn't. Parker would take care of it. Harry throws an appreciative glance toward the door. I'm surprised he's still around. I'd have thought after your old man kicked it that he'd leave. How so? Best butler in London, my dear. Worth his weight in gold. If you're not careful, someone will nick him right from under your nose. Unlike you, Parker isn't solely motivated by the vile metal. He wouldn't leave me like that, especially not now. If he were planning to go, I'm sure I'd know. I'd watch my back is. Even my mother has mentioned him upon occasion. Don't be nonsensical, dear boy. Now run along and behave. If I catch a whiff of you in some gambling hell, I'll let Parker find you and give you a right beating. Must you threaten me with physical violence? If there ever was anyone who needed to be threatened with physical violence, that person is you. Okay, wait. After I just had that whole talk about not falling for the butler, why is he still here? If he was really devoted to the dad who's now gone, why is he still here? Hey, past Reaper from like 2 minutes ago. We might be okay. I'm sitting at my writing desk, papers strewn about me as I try to make heads or tails of the ledger. If that'll be all, my lady. I look up to see Parker, whom I hadn't noticed was still in the room. The man really is like a cat. Next to me, there's a cup of tea, steaming, fresh tea, which I'm sure hasn't miraculously kept for the last 3 hours. Good night, Parker. The conversation I had earlier with Harry springs to mind. Pardon, Parker. Do you have a moment? Certainly, ma'am. He bows, his face inscrutable as ever. If you were planning on leaving us, you'd give me prior notice, would you not? The candlelight plays across his face, and I see a flicker of something. I would, ma'am. So, you're not planning on leaving? Not presently, no, milady. I stare back at him for a few seconds. It occurs to me that, when I set out on my own, I'll be bereft of him. Working for me instead of for the Marquis is clearly a step down in the world, one I can't bring myself to ask of him. I understand you're looking to find a permanent residence in London. I've made no secret of it, but I also haven't told him directly. How he somehow managed to glean that information, unless he was listening at the door, I can't tell you. If at all possible, I'd like to remain in your ladyship's service.
Okay, I'm sorry. There it is. That's it. It's this one. Your Honor, it's this one. I choose this one.
I just want everyone who plays Otome games, plays any kind of game that has a dating aspect to it. You will never win. You will never win. You will never, like, you don't get a choice. The characters that are meant for you are meant for you. And you can tell yourself, no, I'm not gonna romance that one. But if it's meant to be, you will. And you won't have a choice. It's out of my hands. Such is the life of an Otome player. Like, God, it's him. I've chosen. Ah. Okay. The words come out in evenly modulated tones, unlike the words I just had. But even I can tell that this is something he feels strongly about. Parker, you know I can't let you do that. The Marquis and his new bride will need all the help they can get. It's the Marquise? It's the Marquis, right? You don't pronounce the S, right? Finding a new butler. I don't want to say it'd be impossible, but certainly difficult to find anyone to fill Parker's shoes. Quite. Which is why this is a personal request. I wouldn't have been more shocked if he'd suddenly announced his intention to join a traveling circus. I gingerly lean back and look him over, still shocked. And this is something you're certain of. There's a shadow of something on his face. Amusement, perhaps? Very much so. If I may speak plainly. Yes, speak all you want. Okay. I nearly double back. Parker isn't exactly the most conversationalist of servants. By all means. His face is still an impassive mask, and yet there's that flicker again. Your father was kind enough to take me in. He made sure I was fed, clothed, and that I learned a trade. Leaving you simply because he's gone would be a disservice to his memory. It's possibly the longest sentence I've ever heard from Parker. I'm also calling bullshit. I'm calling fucking bullshit. My words fail me as I try to digest what just transpired. If that'll be all, my lady.
I love his facial expressions. Fuck! Ah.
This time, I catch a flicker of a smile as he summarily dismisses me. Or at least, that's what it feels like. As though I were still a rowdy chit up past her bedtime. I clear my throat. Have you considered that if you follow me to London, you'll be leaving Dorset? The very thing Papa cherished most in the world? There's a small pause as he stares evenly back at me. Now that I started noticing it, it's inevitable to see the gleam in his eyes. I'll give you some time to think about this. If you could ask Elsie to light a fire in Aunt Emmeline's room. I'm about to continue my endless battle against my mismatched accounts when, 1 foot out the door, Parker clears his throat. Begging your pardon, my lady. I look up at him like he's grown a second head.
Have I unwittingly encouraged him to be chatty?
Dorset is not what Lord Ashburn loved most in the world. And with that endless bit of cheek, he steps out as silently as he came in.
A few days later, the door to the drawing room opens abruptly, and in walks the right humble? The Viscount Melville, unannounced, looking darker than a thunderstorm. Oh, okay, so this is Charles. This is the older brother. Did you say yes?
At the door behind him, Parker exchanges a look full of meaning with me.
Sorry, buddy. You're out. Your little brother's out. I'm going for that one. This one. I'm going for this one. That's mine.
Lord Melville was most insistent. It's quite all right, Parker. I wave him away, setting down my book. Very well, milady. The second the door closes, Charles resumes his lecture.
Well?
I then get up to my feet, feeling I'll need the full advantage of my height to deal with this unforeseen nuisance. How do you do, Lord Melville? Who else knows about this? Why, yes, I myself am doing lovely. Would you care for a seat? If we can only scotch the news before it spreads. Charlie, you need not go through with this madness. Did you make him some sort of promise? Charles. He shakes his head, still pacing around the room. Doesn't signify. I'll have a talk with Harry and I'll let him know I forbid it. The thing with Charles is that he's used to being shown deference. Unfortunately for him, I neither worship the ground he treads on, like Freddy, nor am I terrified of him, like Harry. Instead, Charles tends to bring out the most confrontational in me.
Oh my god. Is Charles pushing off his wedding because he wants us? I mean, okay, because I know it's really early to make those assumptions, but I am a catch, so I think that's what it is. That's what I think it is. I'm still not choosing him, but
you will do no such thing.
What?
He looks over at me as if seeing me for the first time, and I'm suddenly possessed with the strongest urge to laugh. Do you think this is amusing? Yes, very much so. I cross the distance between us slowly, step by catty step. First of all, you forbid nothing. You have no authority over me or Harry for that matter. Last I heard, he is of age. And yet he is possessed of none of the qualities that age brings. What's more, I pay for his dissolute way of life, and I can very well stop doing that, can't I? Well, you don't pay for mine. You're overstepping your authority, Charlie. Am I? I'll have you know that James entrusted you to me before he left for France. I finally reach him and place a single hand on his arm. His eyes soften and I tilt my head at him. You're mistaken if you think James would have the least objection to my marrying your brother. I could see him momentarily struggling against his need to control everything and everyone. I should think he would. I shake my head. You'll be surprised to know that, unlike you, we're both very fond of Harry. What's more, you've so often told me I should find a husband. I'm just following your sage advice. Doing it much too brown is. You know I meant you should find a good husband. Other people might choose to be pleased for their brother. I am considered quite the catch. Did I not just say this? Which is precisely why I can't conceive why you'd throw yourself away on Harry, of all people. He's a gambler of the worst species. He would fritter away your entire fortune in the blink of an eye. It is fortunate, then, that I have no intention of throwing myself away, either on Harry or anyone else. What's more... What did you say? I shake my head and take a step back, slipping away from his grasp. He seems to be struggling with this information. You can't mean...
Then what? But Freddie told me.
In my defense, you stormed into my house without so much as a by your leave, and didn't allow me a word in edgewise. Harry behaved with far more propriety. So he did ask you. Are you done scolding? He lets himself fall on the chair I offer him and stares at me for a few seconds. His blue eyes, the one thing he shares with Harry, are full of relief. I take it you said no? Obviously. Did you storm the place without prior warning simply because you thought I'd somehow gotten myself tangled up with your brother? His cheeks color. I was just concerned he'd offended my sensibilities, made violent love to me. You know as well as I do that your brother has more bottom than sense, but he'd never do anything untoward.
I didn't mean...
What then? You thought I'd get swayed by pretty empty words of love? From Harry? It's not that ridiculous. I can see the shadow of a smile cracking at the stern countenance, and I press on. You're right. It's more than ridiculous. It's preposterous. Did Freddie put you up to this? She said he'd come over and you've always had a soft spot for him, so I thought maybe I'd lost complete leave of my senses and agreed to marry Harry? There's a silence as Charles's mouth curls upward, finally taking a second to appreciate how absurd it would be. Honestly, darling, it's so unlike you. You didn't even send a note. Have you even had luncheon? No, but you can join us then. I don't think that would be proper. I should think all semblance of propriety was thrown off the window when you showed up unannounced. Aunt Emmeline will be back sometime soon. She'll be delighted to see you. There's really no need, I wouldn't want to put you out. Nonsense, it's my pleasure. It's so rare that I get to see you nowadays. If you're concerned about Aunt Emmeline, we can fabricate a note of some sort. Tell her it got misplaced or forgotten. Fabricate a note? Are you foxed? I'm perfectly sober, thank you. Parker wouldn't betray you either, I'm sure. Now you're proposing to bring the help into this?
Oh, don't talk about my man that way. Don't do it, Charles.
The help? You mean Parker? I can't help but feel slightly indignant at the notion of Parker being lumped in with the scullery maids and the stable boys.
Same. Don't do that to my man. Don't do it. You will catch these hands, Charles. Catch them.
Yes, Parker. Honestly, you need to learn how to establish boundaries. Says the man who announced himself alone into my sitting room without a by your leave. I'm not some chit barely out of the schoolroom. Well, you're acting like one. Forging notes, really? I get up to my feet, and so does he. I'll be in the dining room. When you're ready to climb down that pedestal of yours and stop telling me how to live my life, you can either see yourself out, or you can join me. I'm sure Aunt Emmeline would be thrilled to see you, but if you're going to continue being a disobliging clodpole, I'd rather you left. Disobliging clodpole. I stop in the doorway, a small smile threatening to slip. Yes. Is that the best you can come up with? Well, you're not interesting enough to be a cad or rake or a knave or anything of the sort. Are you quite done talking fustian? Fustian? I'm just saying you need to be more careful. I find it appalling that you feel you can scold me after barging in like you just did. That's a lovely shade of hypocrite you're wearing.
Burn! Isabelle with the burns! Nice.
He seems chastised by this comment, face reddening. Coming in much too strong is when you've never cared for when you never cared a fig for any of that. And yet you care. Except apparently when it's convenient not to. I was concerned. How kind of you. But I assure you there's no need. I haven't suddenly grown desperate enough to accept any idiot that comes my way, regardless of how fond I am of said idiot. In fact, I'm quite warming up to the idea of a lavish spinsterhood. You're hardly 3 and 20. It's a little early to start declaring your spinsterhood. I will have you know that I'm already 4 and 20, Charles. If no one suitable has shown until now, odds are they won't. Plenty of suitable men have offered for you. Did I say suitable? I meant interesting. You can't tell me you're looking to make a love matches. My eyebrows furrow slightly, my shoulders tensing defensively. Would that be such a bad thing? He looks as though the thought has never occurred to him. Lady Ashburn, her romantic. Why, I never. I don't expect you to understand. Nobody would ever accuse you of being romantic. A shadow crosses his face. On the few occasions we've talked of the subject of Carolyn March, an invisible wall immediately comes up around him, a defensive undertone permeating his every sentence. I think he loved us, but Carolyn March must have been a better, family match option, so he went with that because he is the oldest. I bet that that's it. I can't think of why. I just gave, there it is. There it is. I'm very fond of Carolyn. I'm very fond of my horses, but you don't see me marrying them. Oh, that's why. I'll learn to love her. We all will. I really wish I believed him. Unfortunately, I do not. From his tone, I don't for a moment think he does either. I'll have you know she made Freddie cry when we came out. Several times, in fact. She was just a silly young girl. She's different now. Well, you're right about that. She's no longer young. You're absolutely horrid. No, she's savage, and we love it. So's Carolyn, and yet somehow we must all learn to live with her, mustn't we? A smile dances sadly on his face for a few seconds before it's replaced with his usual stern look. It's the right thing to do, Is. And there it is, the crux of the matter, the fact that it's the right thing to do. You do know that you don't have to run mad sorting out everyone's lives for them, don't you? I'm sure I don't know what you mean. Carolyn March is a grown woman who has been drowning in proposals of marriage since she first came out. Even if you hadn't offered for her, she'd have more than enough suitors. That's where you're wrong. They're saying she's cursed. What? My heart falls to my feet as the meaning of his words dawns on me. What? Is it sickness? First it was Lord Amesworth, then Jack Selwyn, lastly Benji. Of course they're saying it. But Benjamin had been sick for months, and Amesworth was ancient. And poor Selwyn was killed off in France, of course, but you know how it is. 3 dead fiancés? Oh, this poor girl, dang. I mean, there's no excuse for you to be a bitch, but phew. 3 dead fiancés? Tongues wag. They're laying bets on how long it'll take me to die. I stare in horror at him for a few seconds. How vile. He nods, and I sense the wall around him crumbling for just a second. Do you see now why I have to marry her? Then why haven't you, buddy? He asks it like it's somehow important that I do. I can see why someone must. I just don't see why you must be the one happily skipping towards the scaffold. Except of course I do. Charles has always been like this. He can't help himself any more than I can. Benji would want her taken care of, and she's a perfectly amiable girl. You'd like her if you'd only give her a chance. I sincerely doubt it, but I abstain from telling him just that. I place a hand on the crook of his arm and give it a squeeze, and walk with him toward the door. Come now. I doubt we'll ever see eye to eye on this, but I hate the thought of us being at outs because of that woman. Are you having luncheon with us or not? I'm starting to feel faint, and I've half a mind to kick you out. I'll just pay my addresses to your aunt to take my leave then. I've matters to attend to. The duties you have so woefully shirked by coming here to make sure I hadn't gotten engaged to your brother? He lets out a small snort. Yes, those precisely. Okay. This is a few days later, so I'm gonna call it there. Let's go over. We has a little save. Return. And quit. Yes. And that was the first look at Impolite Society. In true Reaper fashion, I mixed up a lot of the voices again. But I love Isabelle. We are a hoot and a half. We are savage. We have the comebacks for days. Whoo, she is like, don't fuck with me. Don't fuck with me. I will destroy you. I love that energy. I love that energy, and I don't think any of the men so far, except for one, respects that enough. The only problem I have with my choice is that I need to make sure it's coming from a good place and not from a place of like, I feel like I owe you my life kind of thing. Like I want it to be something like real and sweet, and I'm seeing them on the screen right now, and we make really cute couples, all I'm saying. So I do remember reading that there was a person who was taken, like someone who wasn't available. That must be Charles, and that's just a real put off to me, because I don't like going after. No, if you're engaged, you have a girlfriend, you're talking to someone, I'm like, good for you. Bye. Like, I don't touch that with a 10-foot pole. Do I wish he married for love? Sure, of course I do. Hell yeah. But no. You can figure your shit out on your own. You can either call it off and then try to date me or what, but I'm not. Nope. You have to make the decision. And the little brother is just, no, I need someone who has their life together. So that leaves us with one option, and I can't wait to continue that. But again, all this information is down in the description box below, along with all my social media, like my Twitch, where I am streaming 3 days a week, doing the same thing of sexy, spicy September. So if you want to come watch me live, hang out and chat and talk about the games, you're more than welcome to. Also, think about leaving a like and a comment. You know, the usual YouTube stuff. And with that, I hope you have a great day, night, wherever you are in the world, and I will see you next time. Bye, guys!